Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And this will be my first actually interview podcast. And I have a very special person with me, a friend, a nutritionist, yoga teacher, personal trainer, and lifestyle coach, Ryan Kingsbury. Did I say Kingsbury right?
You said it right. Most people
Okay. Great, Ryan. Okay, good that you show up for me. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being on my podcast. Right.
Thank you for inviting me. Yes, absolutely. And so I really wanted you to actually to be here on my first one because you're a very good friend of mine and we kept in contact since Malaysia, our Malaysia experience in the farm. Okay. And we weren't farming really, but we were actually living there and it was a beautiful place, I remember. And since the first time, I remember that we actually got very, very close with each other. And we really are on the same frequency, wavelength. And also because we more or less do the same stuff, okay? We are passionate about a lot of the holistic approach to health and exercises in general. So now I would like a little bit to know about you. Okay. And first of all, who are you right now? What are you doing? Where are you? Just tell us a little bit about you.
So the more I try to learn about myself, the more I realize I don't know. And it's okay to not know completely who you are. But I feel like I am, well, some people, my yoga teacher would say, I'm an enlightened being having a human experience. And so if I could describe my human experience to you, yes. Right now I've transitioned into being a personal trainer because that gives me an easy mask to wear that people can say, oh, you're a trainer. I'll train with you. But what it really is I want to connect with people in a way where it's a more conscious conversation back and forth, and they can open up and we can be vulnerable, and maybe both of our lives will change for the better. So in terms of what I am, so technically I'm a coach. So people would come to me for personal training, they would come to me for yoga, nutrition advice, and holistic lifestyle coaching, which I will probably talk about a bit later. But ultimately what I try to be is someone who is not pure projection onto others, who allows the space for others to express who they really are and to help them realize their dreams and their potential, which makes my life better because I feel fulfilled and hopefully makes their lives better as well. And hey, if they look better when they're naked in the mirror, hey, better,
why not?
better sex, all that stuff that comes with that, hormones balanced out. That's right. The icing on the cake. So yeah, and right now I'm living with my partner in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico for the past year and a half, since I met you in Malaysia, actually.
Beautiful. Wow. I love actually your approach with people, is really like about exchanging. It's not like, I give or get, it's really like an exchange of energy, exchange of understanding ideas, exchanging of who you are as a human being at the end of the day. So it's more than just work or a job, right?
Yeah, because I did the job thing for 15, 20 years. I did I'm going to behave a certain way so that it'll be socially acceptable and everything will work out. But my soul inside of me was just rotting away. And it knew that, but it was just like, well, everybody else is doing this. I just have to do this too, I guess. But then after my personal transformation, I started to realize that there's so much more deep down inside of us that wants to express ourselves. and our ego's busy just saying, shut up, shut up, shut up. We need this
Yeah.
job. We need to keep this relationship that we're unhappy with. You know, I don't want to talk to my parents about that. Things like that come up. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, you actually touched a point where, you know, that I wanted to touch, and which is, yes, because I see you as a successful person, right? I see you someone who is happy with what he's doing, uh, his work that he's doing with the partner and the place that he is in. For me, success is that. But what is success for you, for example?
Success is, to me, personally for me, success is to be comfortable in my skin and know that not everybody's going to like who I am. But if I'm trying to appease everyone, I'm not actually authentically myself. So I do feel much more successful than in the past, because I can be, it's interesting because I didn't think this would come true, but the more authentically I become myself, the more people respond better to me and want to know me, because that's what ultimately they're looking for. They're not looking for a clone or a copy of anything. You know, social media is a great example of that. It's like, how do I clone so-and-so who has so many followers? Well, no, throw that all out and completely become authentically yourself. And the people who resonate with you will come to you and support you. And the exchange will be so much more beautiful. So yeah, I don't measure myself in terms of financial success. Ever since I was financially successful and unhappy and a horrible communicator, and I shattered my relationships, all for the sake of having that image of success. So it's interesting that you mentioned that I project an image of success, because the old me would have said that guy's a failure.
Well, pretty harsh, that whole you, right?
Yeah. Oh, super judgmental, right? Super judgmental. Yeah.
Yes. And so, yeah, that old you, okay? Because as you said, you know, you feel like, you know, you're actually more successful, and based on your idea of success. And I would say every successful person, okay, they became successful, okay, thanks to a pivoting point, okay, in their life, where they just said, you know what, enough of who I am, enough of what I'm doing. I want to do something totally different, okay? And so you touched a little bit about your previous self, your old self, that was not actually in your eyes right now as successful as thought he was. And so tell me a little bit about your old self, and why he wasn't happy or successful, and the pivoting point that changed your life, really.
Yeah. So my old self, my values were sort of based on what I deemed socially acceptable in my environment. So I was always trying to please people and giving all my energy in all directions if people wanted it. So I would burn myself out. Now, when my transformation, I'd say, was 3 different steps. So step 1 was to become, as I used to say in my old videos, my own health and wellness advocate. Meaning respecting yourself and your needs, and maybe even putting them first, because I was quite sick when I was younger. And so I had to learn things on my own, learn how the world really works, and take charge of what I was creating, and the dis-ease that I was creating for myself, turn that around. So that was step 1, was taking charge of my own health and wellness, and not putting on others to fix me. The second one was to escape my cultural programming. And by that, what I mean is learning another language and seeing life from a completely different perspective, and then analyzing, having that perspective in my mind, so I can analyze the way my culture works and taking pieces from cultures all over the world that I found valuable that I could bring into my life. So escaping my social programming to say, I'm a Canadian, I'm a Protestant member of the Protestant church, I speak English, I'm this, I'm that, I'm part of this group, I have my definitions and I live in my box. Escaping that made me feel very free. And I realized it really didn't matter what people thought of me, as long as I knew that I was authentically trying to be myself and not hurting others in the process. And so step 3 would be that I was my plant medicine journeys and being called upon by Mother Ayahuasca, just having no idea what it even was. And next thing I knew, being deep in the jungle in Ecuador and the shaman singing to me and seeing what I would describe as the fabric of the universe and writing down things that make absolutely no sense in any language, but they're universal truths. And learning those universal truths gave me this sort of peace and understanding, and allowed me to not operate out of fear and not allow other people to control me out of any type of fear anymore, which is, I think, why I don't want to get into a whole ramble about plant medicines, but I think that's why it's so scary for any society or government to introduce plant medicines, because who's going to go to work in the way that conventional work exists? Who's going to go back to that? You know what I mean? Consciously do anything, it's very hard to replay all that unconscious programming and to be an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever all those addictions are. And plant medicine opened my eyes to that. And I didn't do it multiple times. I only did it a few times, but it showed me lifetime's worth of work, which I really appreciate, because it was a very, very scary, lonely, it was a very deep experience, but it was also very loving and very valuable for the rest of my life. So yeah, those were the 3 big steps that I've taken to where I am now.
So could you say that that the ayahuasca was, was needed?
No, actually, no. But it depends. My ego was so set that it was for me, that I don't,
nice.
That's why I never encourage people to take ayahuasca or anything like that. That's why I said it called me. I would only communicate about it with people who I could tell that they had done it or it was calling them. And then open up a dialogue about it. But no, I could sit in the corner here for a couple hours every day for 7 years and get to the same place. I mean, there's one quote. Well, no, it's one quote is someone said, you could sweep the monastery floor for 7 years, or you could do 1 hit of LSD. Now, it's not to say that sweeping the floor is bad or there's anything wrong with it, because somebody who responds to that saying, well, take the LSD, is somebody who doesn't realize the construct of time, and that 7 years is absolutely no big deal. If it works for you and you get yourself ready for that place over those 7 years, it's probably a better experience than to be thrown into universal consciousness without any understanding, and your ego basically saying, we're dead, we're never coming back. It can be very scary, very scary.
Right. Wow. Amazing. I love it. I love it what you said, because I would say, and I agree, it's really to do it if you are cold. So if you are cold, maybe you're even curious, but if you feel like you're cold and you want to try, go ahead and try. Otherwise, as you said, it's not the only way, right? It's not the only way, but it definitely, is something that really break the walls. So, and as you said, if you're not willing, let's say you're not really willing to sweep the floor, I would say, why not? I mean, I did it too. And why not? I mean, like, it was an amazing experience, and so why not? Why not to try? And yeah, amazing, great.
Yeah.
And okay, so then you had this moment, okay. Well, I wanted also to add, because I love the little details of it. So let's say those 3 steps, you did them right before, I would say, of this moment where I would call it pissed off moment, or moment where you just say, you know what, enough. So was there a moment where you just say, you know what, enough? Was
Oh,
there like
yeah, there was
okay.
not a moment. There was a long time, a
Okay.
long time. I'd say years, where I kind of wanted to push on everybody how everything was wrong. The world is upside down. Everything is BS. That the true intention behind what most people say and do is completely false and fake. And everything just upset me. And I just upset everyone around me. I didn't provide anything useful to anybody with that behavior, but it's something I had to go through to understand. And
Yes.
sometimes someone who snaps back at you when you're in that behavior mindset, you might be upset with them, but maybe they're in some way your guru a little bit in saying, hey, this is not the way to project onto others. You're dumping your stuff onto somebody else and expecting the world to become a better place. And you're not doing the work either. I wasn't doing this work back then. But that's when, I don't know what the turning point was. Maybe it was like, okay, it's either that I kill myself or I do this. And I think that's what a lot of people come to be honest. They say it's all for nothing. So whatever, let's just try something different. And then they realize they were just keeping themselves in that cycle. And that cycle can last. I mean, you've probably met a 60 or 70-year-old person who's still pissed off at everything they read in the news. It's not like your warrior's journey, your hero's journey, sorry, is going to just come when you're like in a coming of age movie, when you're 17 years old. It's just going to happen. You're going to go out on your journey and come back and save the city. No, it might not happen in this lifetime. But yeah, I feel like I've been presented with quite a challenge, because I'm a very sensitive person, a very fearful person. And I've had to face that sensitivity and fear, and also the feeling like I didn't deserve to be loved. And facing that and turning it around and saying that I do. Like, if someone's listening and they wanted to try a mantra, something like, I deserve to be loved, or I love myself. If you repeat that to yourself 10 times and you start crying, you might have an issue with, there might be a disconnect between what you tell other people and the reality is you don't truly love yourself. So yeah, there's always work to do. And I'm still doing that, because even right now, it gets me a bit emotional to say that, because it reminds me of all the time I've spent, and it brings all this resentment and regret and saying, why didn't I do this when I was 18? Why did it take until I was in my mid 30s to turn things around? What the hell? Who the hell wants a 40-year-old personal trainer? All those silly thoughts that come into our minds, but they're all BS, right? Because I could be an inspiring 40-year-old personal trainer. It's just,
and you're
changing your
probably a
perspective.
young one as well. I mean, like, there's 60 years old personal trainers.
There you go.
So
I'm just fresh and new and young.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Great. So thank you for sharing this. And I know that this is something like personal, so thank you for sharing it with us and with me. Us, where are they? And so and so great. So now let's come back to who you are right now. So personal trainer, okay. So I saw, especially on your website, and I know, of course, who you are, but on your website is a little bit more detailed, and that you are a personal trainer, yoga teacher, nutritionist, and holistic lifestyle coach. Now, I loved that holistic lifestyle coach. I really do. And please tell me a little bit about what is that about?
So yeah, holism is so hard to describe because it encompasses everything. But the system I learned, many systems use a sort of 1, 2, 3 approach, 1, 2, 3, 4, or sort of like the pillars. There's 4 pillars, whatever it is. They're just all metaphors. They're all methods to try to help you understand the overarching concept. And so for the method I learned, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 approach. 1 love, 2 forces, 3 choices, and 4 doctors. 1 love means to start by finding your purpose, what you're here for, your expression of love, your unique expression of your soul for others. Starting there will keep you from deviating down any path or whatever paths you're headed down right now that don't really ultimately serve anybody and that don't serve to express your uniqueness to others. Because that's what we were looking for, really. Like, I want to connect with Andrea. I don't want to connect with a generic image I have of someone from Italy. You know what I mean? That's not who you are. So finding your 1 love helps you realize the areas of your life where you're not following that dream of yours. People could also call it a dream. So your 1 dream, whatever resonates with you. 2 forces are the forces of yin and yang, the way of nature and the universe. The Hindus would call it karma. You create one thing, it manifests another by default. You know, like you create light and manifest darkness. There's always forces that need to be balanced. That's what creates this amazing experience we're in right now. But balancing those forces in your life and figuring out, am I too yang? Do I go to the gym 7 days a week, but I haven't meditated in 10 years? Or, you know, am I avoiding the yin because the yang is so exciting? Am I out of balance? And when you're out of balance, you start projecting onto others, and then they can't find balance with you. So that's 2.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Number 3 is choices. So the way I see it, if you don't know where you're going and you're on a road, any road's going to get you to your destination. Meaning, you don't know where the hell you're going, so you're just going to end up somewhere. And it's usually going to be determined by other people and their dreams. So if you're working for a company, and I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, right? Because I don't want to talk down and say, if you're stuck in the system, any of that. No, that's not what I mean. I'm just saying, if your boss, if you're not following your dream, or you don't even know what your dream is, you're very likely following your boss's dream. He's taking you down his road. Maybe he has a basic understanding of psychology, and he's not intentionally doing it, but he's manipulating your emotions to keep you down that road. And that's okay. That's okay. That's just maybe where you're at. That's fine. But the 3 choices are to basically say yes to something, to say no to something, or to not really make a decision just yet. So really what the 3 choices comes down to, the choices you make have to do with your core values, your love, your dream, your goals. If you don't base it on that, you have no foundation upon which to say yes or no to anything. And usually the yes or no, or the indifference and avoiding, come from fear and programmed behaviors or repeating patterns that your parents have put onto you. That is a burden that you need to overcome. So yeah, analyzing people's choices and having them do it more consciously, so that they can actually head towards down the road that they're choosing, because they know that their dream is at the end of the road, or at least being on the path is the dream. That's fine. You don't have to be at the destination, right? I mean, it's silly to say that. And 4 doctors is my coach's method of explaining the balancing areas of your life. So Dr. Movement, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Happiness.
Wow, nice. Love that.
So
Love that.
movement.
It's the
for
first time I hear something like that. It's fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's nice.
yeah. It's I love it, man. It resonated with
Yeah.
me from years ago. I love this. It made sense. And these are all methods, right? These are all methods. If this method makes sense to you, pursue it. If it doesn't, there's many others. But for doctors would be Dr. Movement. You know, making sure your movement is healthy and supports you in your work and play environment. You know, are you overdoing it at the gym, or are you doing some kind of sport you don't even like for no reason? Dr. Quiet, obviously, are you sleeping enough? Do you meditate? Do you have a working in practice rather than working out? Dr. Diet, of course, the nutrition aspect, but then looking at it from more of a holistic point of view, like not being caught in any dogmatic nutrition behavior, like saying, I only follow this specific diet. Now, we're all unique. We're all unique, and our diets are unique, is the way I see it. And Dr. Happiness, are you making yourself happy first? A lot of people would respond to that. That is an insult to them, especially if you're the archetype of the nurse or something like that. And you're like, no, but there's dying kids. It's like, okay, how are you supposed to help them? How are you supposed to help them if you're not happy? If you're burnt out, you don't even have the energy. You're not able to fully be present with others. So Dr. Happiness, making yourself happy, and then those around you and your partner, your team, your tribe, whatever you'd want to call it. If you have enough energy, you can support them as well. So yeah, those are the foundational principles. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The pillars of this holistic approach that you have. I love it. I love it.
Good.
I love it because there's a structure. There's a very firm structure. It's not just throw it out there. There's a structure. This structure, you know, is a base probably that will bring you whatever the clients that you have or anybody can want to go. Yeah. So love that. I love the 4 doctor. Definitely those ones. I never thought about it, but it just include everything in there, you know, almost everything basically. So I love that.
Thanks.
So lovely. Talking about, I remember when I met you in Malaysia. Okay, you were already a personal trainers, and you were giving us some tips here and there about exercises, breathing, about posture, and it was very fascinating to me about the posture, the alignment kind of. The alignment kind of practice. So tell me a little bit about, you know, how the right posture, how much is the right posture, posture, affect the life of someone?
A whole great deal lately. And it's also an excellent tool as a coach to be able to, because I see people's posture as symbolic of where their chakras are not aligned, or where their energy is where their energy is not flowing. You'll often see, just for a simple example, somebody's solar plexus, right at the bottom of their rib cage, it might be depressed and down. Their sense of empowerment is low. But somebody who is in balance, they might be upright. Now, they might have a head that's forward or something else, but I see everything as symbolic. So yeah, sure, we could give you exercises to tighten the back chain, bring you back up. But guess what? If you're manifesting somebody whose solar plexus is not in alignment, or their energy isn't flowing there, you're always going to go back down. You're going to sit on the couch that way. You're going to slouch. You're not going to feel a sense of empowerment. Or, for example, somebody whose heart is closed, it's the same thing, right? Like, they'll often cross their arms. They'll be protecting themselves from being hurt because they've been harmed. And You'll see others who come in for a hug, wide open, chest open. You could stab them if you wanted to, kind of thing. And I look at a lot of this. Somebody who talks way too much or doesn't talk enough might have issues with the throat chakra. That affects, maybe your head will point down and come forward. Now there's more, the scientific approach is to say, well, you know, the sternocleidomastoid muscles are pulling you down and forward, and your suboccipitals are, you know, like all this really detailed stuff. But I think that's not holistic approach. So I take a mixed approach by giving people who are science-minded just the detailed explanation, but then if they want to go deeper into that conversation, into that holistic lifestyle coaching conversation, it's all of a sudden like, well, hey, you know, like, who broke your heart? Or did the world break your heart? What are you doing to heal that? Because whatever I do to get your chest to come up an inch, it's going to go down an inch tonight when you feel sad and lonely and you're drinking and you're yelling at somebody because you feel they don't love you. So yes, posture is a blessing for me because I can see someone walk down the street and quickly, before I even, you know, you can learn so much about them. Because to explain further, I've always seen things through the eyes of judgment. It's just, you know, Carl Jung would say that that's my type. I'm a judger. But I'm trying to turn that judgment into something productive by sort of judging people's posture or something like that and figuring out a way to help them. Everything I see is judgment and separation. Like, and when I meet somebody who isn't like that, they kind of conflict with me because they think I'm so different from them, right? They're like, why don't you just love everybody and everything? Why do you see everything as black and white? But yeah, it's helped me in my practice to help detect things about people. Or, you know, somebody who's been molested, their lower chakras turn off. They don't have any sense. They actually almost have no sensation in their pelvic floor. They've literally detached their energy from that. And it'll affect posture, for example, is really interesting because there's this thing called an atlas subluxation, the top vertebra, the atlas, C1. Yeah. If it becomes subluxed, let's say you have an accident, car accident, whiplash, something like that, it gets locked in a fixed position. Yeah. But it's not, people always look at they say, okay, so your neck has a problem. But no, your neck and your sacrum at the bottom have the exact same problem because everything that happens at the top of the spine happens at the bottom. A little lower down the spine happens a little higher up. Everything is reflected to keep balance in the system and equilibrium. So posture, I've had people who, they stand way over to the side and think they have a short leg. But once you straighten out that atlas vertebra, all of a sudden their legs become the same length because their hips have aligned. So because the entire system collapsed under the top, the top vertebra. It's sort of like a hierarchy of priorities. Our body can only do so much, so it sacrifices certain things. Like it'll sacrifice in your arms and your legs for the core, for the trunk, because that's our most vital part of us. Wow. So yeah, sorry, I went a little deep into that, but essentially, yes, posture is super important for me, and I'm constantly observing people, and it helps me so much in my practice. And then, of course, asking questions based on what I see, and then if it rings true, then there's something potentially there to work with.
Nice. Yeah. So basically, you're not a judge anymore. You are assessing.
I've turned judgment into assessment.
Assessment, yeah. You're assessing people like, okay, that's what you can improve. I love it. I love that. Yeah. Love that. So
I'm trying to. I'm not perfect.
Who is at the end of the day? Nobody is at the end. So I was wondering, is there an exercise that would make me taller, like in alignment? I need to be 5 inches taller, brother. So tell me.
Well, so you could grow. You could honestly grow an inch depending on your posture. Yeah. So
Yeah, really, I was joking, but
absolutely.
but
No, you could grow about an inch, because most people, if anybody's watching the video portion, you could see if my head is forward and my shoulders are down. And let's say there's a bar above my head. If I puff my chest out, all of a sudden I'm 2 inches higher. I've hit that bar.
you're right.
But if I'm back down and my thoracic spine is curved too much, my neck is forward, it's almost like I'm trying to duck under something. So absolutely, you can gain height by fixing your posture. Now,
Nice.
I think what you're getting at is there a universal exercise that is probably the best, that I feel best for people to improve?
Yes.
Absolutely. I love yoga, and I actually incorporate yoga into my personal training all the time. And there's a lot of wisdom behind the most basic yoga poses. And I'm going to say there's so many factors, right? So you don't want to give if I just said one exercise every single person should do, a lot of people have back pain or slip discs or major issues. So one that isn't a huge risk and one that is very common in a beginner yoga class is bridge pose. So if somebody listening wants to Google bridge pose, it's a very simple pose. You're lying on your back on the ground. You get your heels towards your glutes, towards your butt. And then the reason I like it, okay, is because you're raising your hips. Most people, they have anterior pelvic tilt, which means their belly button, their belly protrudes forward too much, which causes back pain. When you're in a bridge, you're forcing yourself to be slightly in posterior pelvic tilt. You're sucking your belly button in. You're strengthening your glutes. You're strengthening your hamstrings, and you're strengthening your lower abdominal muscles, and you're stretching your quads. You're basically strengthening and stretching all of the muscles that are most commonly out of balance. It's like reversing the effects of sitting all day and walking around and being in flexion, which is pronation, which is more towards, if you think of being in the womb, that's like the ultimate version of pronation. Supination is the opposite. If you're open, your arms are open, you're accepting the whole world, that's supination. So bridge pose helps you get a little more supinated, a little more open, stretches your chest. Now, it can be triggering for some people, right? Because you're exposing your lower chakras. If you've been molested or something, it feels vulnerable. If you have feelings about your weight, you might think somebody's looking at you and thinks you're fat in that angle. If you don't have a sense of self that's very strong, your solar plexus is aligned and you're going to feel uncomfortable in it. Your heart is open for somebody to just stab you right there. And your throat is somewhat open as well. So all your chakras are coming closer into alignment. And it's something you might not be used to. So for me, it's a physical and symbolic. It's all in one, an excellent way to adjust the physical body and observe. If you observe deeply, you'll see the parts of yourself, emotional, mental, spiritual, that maybe you've been neglecting. So an interesting thing is, people come to tears when they do yoga and they don't understand why. But if I put you in child's pose and I have your knees wide apart and you've been raped, everybody's looking at you. You know what I mean? You might come to tears because you've been forced. It's been too aggressively put on you, this growth. But if you put it in a safer environment, it's calmer, and you can really reflect on what happened and start to come to terms with it, then it's different. So I would say if somebody's on their own, alone, they could do bridge pose and just see what comes up. But if they're in a group, honestly, even something like that might trigger somebody.
Bridge pose on an empty room. That's the safest
empty
way.
room, lights off so you don't look at your belly and judge yourself. Lift your hips as high as you can until your core starts burning. Maybe even clasp your palms behind your back together. Pull your shoulders really far back. Open your heart. And push your shoulders into the ground to strengthen the extensor chain, so that your posture all coming down all of a sudden starts to pull back. A lot of people try to fix their shoulders by pulling their shoulders back and walking around. But if you fix it with your exercises and your stretching, you don't have to pull it back. It stays back.
True.
It's called the resistance contraction factor. If my pecs are super strong and they're constantly contracted and pulling, and my back muscles are the opposite, the factor is going to make my chest tight and my shoulders rounded and everything come down. And I'll be shorter. Like you said, you'll actually be shorter.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow. So much knowledge, man. I'm amazed. Incredible. I love that, because I've learned a lot. And I haven't, and honestly, I didn't think about as the bridge as being one of these kind of exercise, universal exercise, let's say, that you can do, you can use, okay, for posture and, just to feel, also to get used to the openness, probably, for what I understood, little by little, to open yourself.
Or start a conversation with yourself about things that have happened that you might not even realize. You might not realize you were molested. You might not realize somebody tried to use you as a sexual object or something at some point, or disempowered you. But once you get these things in alignment, work with that feeling, that difference in sensation, and work with where it's coming from. And then you could start to come to terms with it and realize it's just a misunderstanding, and holding that negative energy against the other person is going to do nothing but hurt you more and make you carry that around and potentially do that to someone else, because that's what you feel love is. You get beaten as a child, you're going to beat your child, because that's love. So, yeah.
Yes. Wow. Amazing. Great. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I love it. I'm gonna start it as well. Also because I have some back pain a little bit. So I think that when I remember, that was actually very helpful when I used to do that long time ago.
Great.
Okay, so I would like to now let's say if that one day, let's say I took everything from you, everything, all your knowledge, and I ask you, okay, to keep just 3 things, 3 practice for your body, 3 practice for your mind, and 3 practice for your spirit. Okay. So that you can just carry on with those, let's say 6 practice for each one of those big areas, body, mind, and spirit. Which practice would you choose if you had to choose?
So for the body, I would have a yang, a movement practice. Yang as in destructive, using energy, burning, fire. But something that works for you. Back to holism. Being holistic doesn't mean you go to the gym and do some crap that somebody next to you is doing because you think that that's what you need to do. Find the movement practice that makes you happy. I tend to enjoy gymnastics rings. I tend to enjoy yoga, but I don't force all my clients to do yoga. If I put them in a pose and they're like, they're just turned off. No, I'm going to be like, what do you enjoy? Dancing? Okay. Or Kung Fu. Do you want to like Kung Fu movies? Let's play with that. So for the body, a movement practice that is catabolic, tissue destructive. It sounds bad, but it's part of the balance of life. Fire burns, but restores and regenerates. A yin practice, anabolic, going in, working in. It doesn't need to be the conventional, sit there 30 minutes, watch a YouTube meditation video. It could simply be mindfulness. Walk down the street and look at every plant that's growing on the sidewalk, or just observe observe something different. Look up at the sky and notice that you haven't seen the sky the entire day.
That's true sometimes, yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though there's
Yes.
this massive cathedral ceiling above us.
Holy shit,
And nobody
so
takes a
true.
look, you know? Just
Somebody
mindfulness,
look at
just
it.
shifting that perspective. That could be your yin practice, but doing it, maybe starting to breathe while you do it and feel how, or just feel your breath and go, oh, wow, it's super shallow. I'm breathing like I'm being chased right now. And then you can start having those conversations again with yourself about why you're doing it. The last one for the body, I would say, is it's one of the limbs of the path of yoga. It's on one of the limbs. It's called C.H.E.K. It means purification. So if you know anybody from India, they're very, they do sort of tongue scraping, neti pots, some kind of cleanliness or purification practice. So that would be another thing for the body. It doesn't have to be one of those. It could just be to say, you know, like I want to keep my hygiene good. A lot of people neglect their hygiene when they feel bad. So simply making sure that your clothes are clean and your whatever, you know, it can help with who you present yourself as to others.
Yeah.
So yeah, yang, yin, and C.H.E.K. Now for the mind, I would say trying to listen to the thoughts that you've been suppressing that are there. Give them space to speak and to tell you what's going on. That's how I learned about things I never thought had even happened. You know, when I started talking about molestation with clients, I was like, oh, I can't connect with them. It's not, who am I to do it because I've never been molested? And then I was like, oh, but that was that time that guy held me down on the couch. And that, oh, that's where all those nightmares came from, where some guy with no face was holding me down and I couldn't move. Or how if my girlfriend lies on top of me, I freak out and I push her off. So listen to the things, or observe your own behavior and sort of dig down into where they might be coming from, because something might have happened that your memory, it's still there. It's all 100% there. You've just filtered it out, because that's what we need to do to protect ourselves, filter it out. Second thing would be to engage people who challenge me rather than run away from them. And actually, what helped me with that was hearing someone talk about how a monk in a cave is not doing the work if they can't go home and spend a week with their family once a year, because they're just running away. Yeah, because it's a challenge. So in the Sutras of Patanjali, for anyone who learns yoga, he talks about attraction and aversion being problematic. So being addicted to something and overly attracted to something is just as problematic as avoiding something. I'm in this group, I avoid that group because they're a bunch of idiots. That is problematic. Or everyone, that whole country, I hate that. You know what I mean? You really, you hate those 350 million people, every single one of them. You didn't happen to listen to a podcast where one of them might have said something interesting, you know? So that is where aversion is dangerous. So I would say engage that. Don't allow it to disempower you, but engage it in a way where you're not just pushing it away, and you're trying to understand where other people come from. Have a different perspective. And thirdly, I would say discover your social programming. What part of your socialization taught you certain things? I mean, there's a reason that my religion class in my school taught me about purgatory, even though I didn't even know what the word meant. It's because it was a Catholic school and they didn't even realize I was a Protestant. So everyone there was under the assumption that purgatory is the place you go. I still don't even fully understand purgatory, but when I
Who
look back
does?
at it, when I
It's a
look back
middle
at it,
ground.
I
Yes.
go, okay, well, now I understand that if I were raised Catholic without, and not having a discrepancy when the teacher said purgatory, I would have just gone through life saying, in my back of my mind, purgatory exists. I have to behave myself because when I reach purgatory, everything will be balanced. The scales will be balanced. So discovering those social programs, figuring out what actually is true and isn't true, what is serving you and what doesn't. People who might have said that you were a piece of garbage when you were young, you might be walking around telling yourself, I'm a piece of garbage, or looking for people who are going to say the same thing to you, because again, that's love. That's the connection.
Yeah.
You're just looking for a connection, even if it's through somebody hating you. It's still a connection. Somebody beating you,
Yes.
somebody
Yes,
molesting
absolutely.
you, all that, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
those practices I try to use for the mind. Now for the spirit, I mean plant medicines, but only when they call me.
Okay.
So if I'm called, I will be fearful, but if it comes from me, I know it's something I need to do. If it comes from somebody else or somebody pushing me, it's never going to happen. So plant medicine is amongst the three in spirituality, but right now there's some DMT sitting right in the image behind me, but I'm not sitting here smoking it because it's not calling me. It can sit there for years, and one day I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Or it's like, I have something to show you. This is where you're not. So plant medicines. For me, a second thing would be analyzing religions and finding the roots, going further back to the roots of religions before the meanings were kind of sort of broken telephone was played with the meanings and the translations and the misunderstandings, misrepresentations. Before we came to, this Catholic environment I'm in here, where some of them look at us like we're the devil just because we're different. Looking at even Christianity, which doesn't seem to be so spiritual, even the spiritual aspects of every religion, listening to mystics or reading mystics from each religion, from Muslims, from Buddhists. A lot of people go to Buddhism and say, well, it's the spiritual religion. Well, no, they were killing people too, man. They were massacring people.
Absolutely.
And so let's not forget about that part of history. Okay, now it's the most lenient or the most spiritual of the organized religions. But does that mean that there's nothing in Christianity that has any kind of spiritual truth? So that would be number two. And number three would be to not just get so caught up in my human experience. Just sort of laugh a little bit sometimes and go, I basically observe myself as an outside witness. The same thing you might experience under plant medicines, you get a chance to witness yourself. And then you might laugh and go, oh, wow, this guy is so dramatic. Everything's so important to him and this and that. And it helps you. It helps you put things into perspective and realize where you need the work to do the work and not get upset with yourself. Forgive yourself for being so dramatic and move forward, because hanging on to this negative energy about yourself and these limited beliefs and sabotaging yourself, we've seen it doesn't get people very far.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
So much wisdom, so much beauty. I love the practices. I think with those practices, you're good to go. I mean, like, basically, you can do basically anything. I mean, it can be anything, and you can be like enlightened pretty easily. But no, for real, I mean, like, those are beautiful practices that everybody, I hope that, whoever is listening or will listen, maybe even if they get one or two of those practices, will actually change their life completely. even just if it's like, movements, or yoga, or just listen to your thoughts. Those are like basic,
Let me just give
amazing.
you one quick example of that, how
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
applied, well, something we talked about a little earlier, but I was invited to coach at a retreat here coming up. And I didn't just automatically say yes. I said, because it's like, oh, here, there's lots of money, this and that. It's like, okay, that doesn't match my value system. So what I said to the person was, I want to talk to you and ensure that this is in alignment with my core values. What are we doing? What is the intention behind this? And after that conversation, I was able to say yes with all my heart, and then because I'm going to put a lot of energy into it, know that it's helping me towards my dream, but also those that come towards their dream, and everybody who, if there's a financial transaction, it helps people live their lives too. That's great. That's just like a
Yeah.
little side thing that happens. I don't use that as my bait to go, oh, I want that job because it's got more money. No, if it's in alignment, those people that I connect with there's probably going to be so much that comes from that. That's why I don't even look for clients. There's just too many people asking because
Yeah.
they realize that I'm not just desperately putting myself out there to people. When I connect with somebody, I do my best and I'm truly present with them. They see that as the value and the difference, and they become your marketing team. And then all the other stuff that people talk about, making money and this and that, it all just comes together separately while you were just busy following your dream, enjoying your time, doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful because people will consider that as selfishness, or they'll be jealous and they'll try to sabotage that in some way. So you have to not get caught up in people's projections of their own limited beliefs, and be compassionate. Yeah.
Love it. I love the integrity, so you're doing it because it matches your values first. So I
First.
love that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is very attractive, actually. Yeah, it's very attractive for people because they see you as, and I know you, but I know that you are, and they see you as someone who is real, basically. Is real.
Yes,
So
your authentic self is beautiful.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And that's what people want to see.
Exactly.
Beauty is everywhere.
Especially nowadays, I think people want to really see more and more authenticity. So if somebody can to be an example of it and show how that is possible to be authentic, to be themselves, to be you, without having too much trouble with yourself and others, or struggle. You just be you and be happy. Amazing. I love that. So, and I'm gonna ask you a few more questions before we wrap it up. And about kindness. Kindness would be, this podcast is about as well. I mean, I like it to make it about kindness as well. So the kindness, because I really believe kindness is, because everybody talks about unconditional love, but kindness is really like the practical way to be unconditional. So when you think about kindness, the word kindness, what comes up to your mind?
The old me would have had a really hard time, because it would just have triggered my thoughts about how I was not a nice person. I would just be so stuck in me, and I'm not kind and all this. But now what it means to me is basically, I don't want to use the word God, but I'm going to use the word God in the sense in the sense of creation, not the creator, like we're going to say that it's a man or a woman or this or that, just the pure potential that creates everything, whatever you want to call it, light, energy, let's just say energy, and acknowledging that every single thing you see is another face of God, of that energy, of that pure potential. And once you see that, you can't dismiss it as something less, and you can't divide it and put it into this pile of garbage compared to this amazing, all these treasures that you've found. These are my treasures. These 20 people are amazing. These 100 million people are garbage, Once you understand the universe a little better, and I'm only saying it from the teachings I've been given from something higher, which I never would have thought myself would say, because I dismissed the church, I dismissed religion for so long. Ironically, that's my karma, that I have to go full circle and come back to the church, and maybe even go pray in the church one day. To the original, pray to the original idea of Christianity.
Yes.
And what they're trying to say by God. The essence.
Right.
I pray to the essence. Well said. So acknowledging, when you acknowledge another face of God, let me just quickly give you a little story that helped me understand that.
Absolutely.
So there's someone named Richard Alpert, otherwise known as Ram Dass. He was a Harvard professor. He was tenured, and he was given LSD during the LSD experiments, and went into India, found his guru, and became sort of a spiritual teacher around the world. And so he was having a conversation with his father about how he has a hard time. His father was saying, like, you can't just give you can't just give money to every homeless person on the street. And then he said to his dad, he's like, well, you love your brother, right? Like his uncle, you love your brother. Yes. You're a lawyer. Yes. So you did that trial for your brother recently. Yeah. Well, how much did you charge him? I didn't charge him anything. And it's like, well, Dad, why didn't you charge him anything? It's because he's my brother. I love him. And Ram Dass said, well, everybody's my brother. That's my predicament. So, because his guru said, love everyone. And he had to spend years and years really realizing he was compartmentalizing his world and saying, I love these hippie people who follow me around, but screw those conservatives. I tie my father into that group too. No, he realized he had to be present and see the face of God in everyone. And that's to me, that's my, what I'm working on, to be as a way of being kinder. And I honestly saw you do this, and that moved me a lot to see that you didn't divide and separate when things got hard, and you expressed kindness in a way that I've never seen somebody do. So thank you for that.
Wow, thank you. I didn't know actually about it, but thank you for sharing that. You mean in the at the farm? Okay. Those one were tough times. I mean, like COVID and things like that. I mean, like, was not easy, it was not easy to be in the same place, in one place, maybe not even that big enough, but not as big. So everybody were just like, going.
It's like a reality TV show.
Reality. Exactly. Love it. Wow, man. So thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you so much for being here, and for the wisdom, for the time that you gave me. And love it. And I hope I can do a podcast with you again in future, and maybe with your partner as well.
Yeah, with Lotta, that would be great. I'm excited to listen to your podcast. I'm really happy about that.
And that's thanks to you, actually. thanks to you that I'm doing this, because I was a little bit hesitating, yeah, hesitating
Yeah.
to do that. So step by step, let's see. This is the first step, and I
Yeah.
loved it, and I'm glad I had you. And so, how can the listener find you online?
Okay. So what Lotta and she has very similar qualifications to me. We've created a website called FitWell Fusion, FITWELL Fusion.com.
Yeah.
And we've created a podcast, FitWell Fusion Podcast. And we're on all the social medias the same way, at FitWell Fusion, for any of them. And there's three categories that we cover: movement, nutrition, and mindset. Now, like, the holistic lifestyle coaching has 4 doctors. We're focusing on 3 categories, but for example, if this podcast interview went into our podcast, it would be categorized as mindset. If you and I were talking about movement modalities and I was demonstrating exercises, movement. Nutrition, talk about, people's issues with nutrition, diet, losing weight, all that stuff. So that's the scope of our conversations and the scope of our work. Basically, that's why we filtered it down to that. And we try to encourage people to become their own health and wellness advocate. I've felt that for a decade now. And that is not something that someone said to me. That statement came out of me one day. I was recording a YouTube video, and I was just like, become your own health and wellness advocate. Understand your true potential, and people can't control you with fear and manipulation. And it is not just when it comes to getting you to eat garbage food. It's getting you to have a garbage job, or getting you to live in the wrong place, or be afraid of going somewhere, or afraid to be yourself. It applies to all areas of life.
Right.
So that's what we're both very passionate about. Lotta is an excellent communicator with people. She's great in groups. I'm improving myself in groups because traditionally I'm more introverted, so I'm more used to one-on-one coaching. But yeah, we're getting into the online space, and we're developing courses. The first course we're developing is for posture, like you already mentioned earlier.
Guys,
we took a look at our average client who has their general postural syndromes from working on the computer all day, whatever it is, and we came up with a movement program to address those postural imbalances. And then separately, we're going to do courses on nutrition, mindset, and general exercise course for general movement, strength building, whatever you're really going for. But this first course is really about straightening you out, getting those chakras more in alignment, experiencing a little taste of your own power. And there's your gateway to transformation.
Wow. I mean, wow. So guys, have you listened to it? So just go. I will put the website. I will put on the website on the description. So just click into it and have a look at the website. And now you understood who Ryan is, and his wisdom and his integrity, his way of actually work. And I know Lotta a little bit, but it seems to be, very capable and very nice and kind as well, and that is very important. And so, I mean, that's it. I mean, like, I will put the link to your website into the description, and
Thank
then
you.
And then probably also other links about the social media, and some other links about other website maybe, but and the podcast as well.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Let me mention one
Yeah.
last thing. So
Yeah.
when I talked about the one love, 2 forces, 3 choices, 4 doctors,
Yeah.
that comes from my studies at the C.H.E.K Institute, and we should put a link to that Corrective Holistic Exercise Kinesiology Institute in California, in England, and in New Zealand, I believe, or Australia. Paul C.H.E.K is the one who created, he is my ultimate mentor. And I want to give him some kudos for creating this beautiful way of simplifying a very complex idea.
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah, absolutely. Love it, love it. I was actually, yeah, something that I had in my mind to ask you about your mentor, who was the one who changed your life. Probably he is one of them, right?
He is the one who was, who started my transformation, and I follow him to this day. Ram Dass was a one that's more recent, because he translates mysticism in a very digestible way for the Western world.
That's right.
Osho, I find is a little harder for people to get into. OSHO, he's a mystic as well, but you could check him out. But it's a deep dive. So much value there. And fourthly, I just want to quickly mention someone that most people wouldn't think, but Duncan Trussell. He's a comedian. And he's a comedian, and he's actually turned me on to Ram Dass, to meditation. And if you listen to his podcast, he even offers meditation groups. He is authentic and vulnerable, and just categorizing him as some raunchy comedian is a disservice, in my opinion, to him. So yeah, I'd consider him a mentor as well.
Love it. I love this tree because it goes from a spiritual to, I mean, they are all spiritual, but yeah, the last one is a comedian, but at the same time, you know, it has this balance. And yes. I've saw him, I've heard him, and he did a lot of things with Joe Rogan as well. I remember, and some series and stuff. So, yeah. Wow, love it. So thank you so much, Ryan, for being here. That was so much fun and so much wisdom as well. And best of luck, and talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Andrea. You are one of my mentors too. Absolutely. I appreciate being connected with you, even if it's virtually.
One day we will get together again.
Yeah.
One day. The world is small. Ciao.
Ciao.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.